Hello, everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to wherever you are, and welcome to today's webinar on the Slack productivity hacks and best practices. My name is Jacob Campbell, and I'm a Principal Success Manager here at Slack, and I'm joined today by my colleague Machidi, who will be showing us a live demonstration, and Stephanie, who will be answering the questions in the chat along the way. So again, welcome. We're excited about today's session, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Before we start, a couple of housekeeping items. Please interact with us throughout the session. Ask questions through the Q&A, and we will answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. Respond to the survey questions on the screen. Check out the resource hub on your webinar console for additional content. And also today's session we recorded and sent out in a follow-up email. Our goals for today's session are going to be helping you set up Slack and navigating your workspace efficiently, while also sharing best practices around customizing your layout, communicating effectively, reducing noise, and helping you save time. As we have a range of Slack experience on the call today, we're going to start with some fundamentals and then move into some new tips, highlight some of the new features that we have recently launched. So let's jump in. Slack's mission is to help people work together and collaborate as easily online as they do in person. Slack brings order and clarity to your work life when you want. So when you want an update, if you're a new employee or coming back from vacation, just jump into Slack and get immediate access to the information that you need. Okay, so let's get you set up. Let's start today by looking at some best practices around setting up Slack before looking at some of the new features that are available to you. And Machidi will be demonstrating some of these in the demo later on. Your profile is where your teammates learn more about you. So we recommend start by editing your name, your job description, or time zone. And don't forget to upload a profile photo. Your photo makes it easier for your teammates to know who you are on Slack and be able to communicate with you more effectively. Over to the left, you'll find your sidebar, which in Slack is an access point for different parts of your workspace. There are a number of preferences that you can set to tailor how you want your sidebar organized. You can decide which conversations to show. You can sort conversations. You can list private channels separately, just to name a few. I would recommend, as a minimum, always having your all unread mentions and reactions displayed. Outside of that, understand what works best for you, play around with a few settings, and really choose what works best for you, and choose what you see for a quick reference. In terms of navigating Slack, on the left-hand side there, sidebar, you'll be able to quickly browse for people and user groups in Slack through the information directory. Search for anyone to view their profile and find information like their job title, local time zone, and much more. You can filter results by account type to find who you're looking for quickly, and always search the directory first before inviting colleagues into Slack. And this is why updating your profile is so important in Slack. All the information you input into your profile is searchable, so please ensure that it's up to date and that your colleagues can easily identify you. So let's now shift into some more specific Slack features to help you be more productive. So a quick recap for those here not familiar with Slack. Your sidebar status lets you know what to read first and where to prioritize your time. Folder channel names will let you know that some activity has taken place, while red dots or numbers indicate that someone has mentioned your name or a user group that you're a part of directly. And quite simply, the pencil icon means that you have an unfinished message or a draft for you to come back to at a later stage. If we look at organising your sidebar and looking at your preferences, we recommend spending a bit of time to organise your sidebar to ensure that you never miss a message in an important channel. You can adjust your sidebar settings to sort conversations alphabetically by recent activity or by priority based on how you use Slack. And this can all be done by accessing your preferences menu. Also, sorting by unread channels is a great way to stay on top of new messages that are coming into Slack. Your mentions and reactions view is often where you want to look when you first open Slack at the start of your day or maybe after a lunch This view highlights all of the mentions and teammates reacting to your messages or any custom keywords you've set up. And just a quick pro tip, it's really important to mention that your teammates it's really important to mention your teammates rather than just write up their name, as they can then be notified of the message that you're writing. Notifications in Slack keep you informed about the work that you carry, whether you're at your desk or on the move. You can customize your notifications to ensure that you never miss an important message or are disturbed while focusing on important projects or maybe on a webinar call. By default, only direct messages, mentions, and keywords will trigger a notification in Slack. However, you can change your preference to be notified for everything when it comes through or nothing at all. Additionally, you can set keywords which will trigger notifications on topics that are important to you. So whenever somebody mentions the name of a keyword or a project that you're a part of in a channel that you're a member of, you'll receive a notification. Additionally, in the notifications preferences, you'll see that you've got do not disturb settings. And these are really great if you've got predictable working hours or even non-predictable working hours. You can set up timeframes when you will and won't be available to receive notifications in Slack. For greater control over notifications, you can increase and decrease the amount of notifications you get in a specific channel by choosing to be notified about every new message, just mentions, or nothing. Additionally, you can mute channels. Muting channels allows you to read new message activity when you want without receiving a notification from your activity. Custom notifications help you minimize noise and focus on what matters. For example, for my priority project channels, I choose to be notified for everything. However, on the other hand, I choose to mute social channels and only check them once or twice a week. If you need time to focus in terms of protecting your time with the moment of not disturb, you can set up your notification preferences to pause notifications as needed to help you concentrate, and even set notification schedule for routines you prefer not to be notified. When teams are not in the office together, we talk around setting up a custom status which allows you to quickly identify when your teammates may not be available for a quick chat or a brainstorm. Setting a status and helps your colleagues know if there's a good time to maybe ping you to something, or maybe hold off. It also helps you take true focus time and set the expectations for your colleagues. Also, pick an emoji that best describes your status. The emoji shows next to your name in Slack so your colleagues can easily see. In terms of creating sections on your sidebar, this is a really great way for you to prioritize your most important work by allowing you to sort your channels, direct messages, and even apps into custom sections or folders within your sidebar. As I mentioned, think of these sections as folders for your channel. You can expand and collapse these sections, and it allows you to organize your conversations in a way that are tailored to you. Whether they're sorted by projects, by teams, the type of work that you're doing, or even maybe announcement or social channels that you're a part of. Personally, I like to organize my work into sections based on the type of conversations that are taking place in each channel. In my announcement folder, for example, I organize my read-only channels that feature important company updates. While my projects folder consists of channels that are dedicated to specific customers and types of work that I'm working on at Slack. There's some additional examples of how you might be able to leverage channels, even for yourself. This is a really great way for you to not only understand how channels can be impactful for you as an individual, but also just generally learning how channels operate. There's some examples of, for a way for you to leverage channels to stay on top of your day and your workload, it's actually by creating a set of personal channels for you to leverage. You can have one-on-one channels with your manager. So in this example, we've got Jacob and Moshi. And where in this channel you can write to-do lists, you can document your expenses, you can make requests. It's a centralized place for you to communicate with you and your manager. Additionally, you could make a to-do channel, which will allow you to manage your tasks. And by leveraging a feature called Slack Posts, you can even create checklists. Finally, others screen here, we've got an expense example where you can upload photos directly into the expense channel to help you keep on top of your expenses now that we're all back on the road for work. Additionally, you may or may not be aware, you can actually perform actions on top of messages as they're posted within Slack. So outside of just replying, there are a number of actions that you can take. You can form more actions on messages by hovering over the message, click on the more actions button, and you can do things like message activity. You can mark it unread. You can pin the message to the channel, as well as many other actions or shortcuts. In terms of using emojis, for those of you who are doing with Slack, this is one of the most loved features within Slack. Emojis are both fun and helpful for getting work done. You can use them to enhance your messages or react to someone else's to quickly communicate. You can add multiple emojis to one message, and it's totally fine to just reply to the message with an emoji without text, which allows you to work faster and more productively as a team. So in the example on the screen here, you can see that a set of eyes, a green tick has been placed on Caitlin's message to indicate that somebody's seen it and also taken action on the request. Some other examples of how you might be able to leverage emojis to save time. We've got the traffic light system up the top of the screen there, where red can indicate an immediate action required. Blue could indicate the time the action sometime today is required, whereas white could basically mean a non-critical request. Additionally, when you're responding to perhaps messages, you could use a set of eyes to say, hey, I'm looking at this, I've started working on it. You could use a green tick to say that it's been answered or the request has been completed. You can use a cross to indicate that the message has been cut or potentially not or declined. Your plus sign to indicate an agreement. You're going to have the bowing emoji there to say thank you, or a thread to indicate that somebody should be using a thread instead of posting in the main channel. Additionally, you can also use emojis as a quick poll. You can, by posting a message in Slack, we can see here on Emily on the screen, by allowing people to respond with emojis, a quick way for you to get feedback from your teams. In your message, you can set a poll up by choosing an emoji for different options for people to vote in. Once you send a message, you can add a reaction to your message, allowing using only one of the emojis that you've selected. Whichever option has the most reactions is the winner. Additionally, you can save important DMs messages for a later time. So if you hover over the message, any message within Slack, you'll know that there's a bookmark signal which comes up. And just by clicking on that button, you'll be able to save that message to come back to when you've got a bit more time. And that save menu is up. It's accessible via the sidebar in the top left. One quick tip before we kick on through into the demo is that you can declutter channels by using threads. And if we talk more about threads, by not leveraging threads, you can create a cluttered and hard to navigate channel. And it's the number one pain point that we hear from customers is that by not using threads, it creates a disorganized channel. Using threads, you are able to connect responses to original messages so that conversations stay organized. This is like a side conversation in a channel. Everyone in the channel can still see the thread, but no one gets bogged down and trying to figure out who is responding to what. A quick tip, anytime you're replying to a message, you should always be threading. And if you're worried about others maybe missing your responses, you can also send it to channel, but you can also mention that person so that they don't miss an important reply. Additionally, in Slack, there is a remind feature. And this is accessible in a couple of ways. So if you wanted to remind yourself or other members of your workspace for important meetings, to-do items, or something you need to come back to a later date, a reminder will be sent as a Slack bot message, which is a great way to manage to do with Slack as well. In the example on the screen here, somebody's hovered over a Slack message, and they've clicked on the More Actions button, and you'll see that there's a Remind Me about a particular message feature to come up. If you're wanting to remind your team or yourself or a group of people to do something, you can type in /remind, and if you hear out your command, it will send a reminder to you, the people that you've selected. Another new feature that we recently rolled out, and arguably one of our most popular, is what we call a huddle. As I mentioned, it's a relatively new feature. However, it's made a huge impact on the way that people are communicating and stuff. The purpose of huddles is to recreate the spontaneous live conversations that you used to have with your teammates in the office. And rather than having to schedule or spin up a video to connect, whether it be for a quick chat or swarming together to resolve an incident or an issue. People can drop in and out of a huddle as they see fit. You can share your screen, you can view a transcript, and you can even draw on screen as well if required. Some additional tips around managing your messaging is that you can schedule a message to be sent at a later date. When you do have an important message to share in Slack, it's really great to use this feature because you can get it to be sent at the best time to be sent. You can select a date and time in the future and rest assured that your message will be sent whether you're at your desk or on the go. You can schedule your message up to 120 days in advance, and Slack will automatically look at the person's time zone and default send it at 9 a.m. their time. Personally, I love using this tool to work with colleagues around multiple time zones, or if I'm working late at night, I can send a message knowing I'm not going to disturb them. Another feature we've recently rolled out is what we're calling video and audio clips. Clips allow you to record audio or videos in Slack and communicate easily with your team, regardless of their time zone or location. You can use clips to share ideas and updates, or even just say hello. Anyone in channel or a direct message can play clips and you can reply and thread with a clip of their own. We're using clips of Slack to replace stand-up meetings, get leadership and team manager updates, ask for feedback on work, and even share wins. Letting teammates know when they've done an amazing job and encouraging others to reply with highlights of their own. Another feature that we've also rolled out is we're calling Slip View. We know that navigating Slack often means that flipping back and forth between frequent channels and DMs to get work done, but it can also be a little bit confusing. Flip View provides a great way to become more efficient by minimizing the constant context switching and giving you more control to orient your conversations on desk. Flip View allows you to reference information from another channel or direct message whilst having another conversation. All you have to do is right click or command click on a channel, DM, or several of the other views to open up Slip View. And this will create a side-by-side view in Slack's desktop experience. Additionally, you can set up bookmarks for channels as well. In Bookmark, you're able to bookmark the important stuff within a particular channel. So some examples of how we're using this in Slack is that you can add links to project plans, spreadsheets, and more. And Bookmark is really a way for you to capture important documentation and create easy access for everyone in the channel. Additionally, you can create folders within your bookmarks as well. And so we just mentioned that you can bookmark anything with the URL. And with these folders, you're able to use that bookmark to aggregate important documents into a folder. This gives your teams fast and easy access to key decisions, messages, and files that are most pertinent to their work in that channel. It'll also allow you to memorialize key content within the channel in a way that makes it even easier to find later. Great, and so that was I know we pushed those slides relatively quickly. I'm going to hand over to Mochi now, and she's going to walk through a demo and add some additional productivity hacks over and above the example we just provided on screen. Over to you, Mochi.
Thanks, Jacob. In this short demo, we'll recap the features we've mentioned. First, we'll navigate a Slack workspace, looking at all its key elements, then delve into setting notification and sidebar preferences before wrapping up with an example of how to structure the start of your day using Slack. Everything you see here is your Slack workspace. To the left, we have the workspace name. We also have the sidebar, which houses all of your channels and conversations. To the top, we have the navigation bar and the search bar. These arrows here allow you to toggle back and forth through your recently visited channels and conversations. This history button also gives you an overview of all your recent channels and conversations. From the search bar, you can search across any keyword across all of your public channels and any private channels or direct messages that you're a member of. You can even use modifiers like messages, files, or channels to have a deeper search. To the top right, you have your profile. This is where you can manage how others in your workspace see you. From your profile, you can select Edit Profile. From here, you can manage your profile photo. You can manage your display name. You can even update what you do at your organization. From your profile, you can also start managing your personalized workspace preferences. Simply click on More, select View Preferences, and you're now in your Preferences menu. In the Preference menu, let's first look at managing your notifications. Here, you can adjust how you'd like to be notified. By default, this will show as direct messages, mentions, and keywords. Keywords are any other words that you choose to be notified of in Slack. Here we have an account name. We also have cake, because who doesn't want to be notified when there's cake being shared, or other spellings or names that you're known by. You can also choose when you'd like to be notified. As Jacob mentioned earlier on, Do Not Disturb is really important. You can also select, this is where you select that automatically. So I have here to allow notifications during my working hours, so weekdays between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Next, let's look at sidebar preferences. Here you can choose which items should always show at the top of your sidebar. So I've selected to have all unreads. This is a collated list of all the unread messages of channels that I'm part of. All direct messages. So this gives me a historic look back at all of my recent direct messages and any new direct messages that come through. Mentions and reactions, which we mentioned before, is a really great tool for starting your day, and I'll show you how. Saved items, and I also want to have really quick and easy access to be able to search across my workspace and organization. You can also choose how you would like your channels and conversations to show in your sidebar. By default, this is set to all your conversations. This means it'll show every single channel and conversation that you're part of. If you want, however, one way that you can reduce what we call noise is to select unread conversations only. What this means is that you'll be seeing only channels and conversations where there are new messages posted. You can even go a little bit deeper and start customizing your sections to have either all conversations or unread conversations only, which is quite a new feature and a lot of fun. Next, you can choose how you would like your channels to be sorted. The default here is alphabetically, which I prefer, but you may also want to have this done by most recent or by priority. I will share with you that using your sections also helps you manage this, and I'll show you how shortly. Now, as you can see, there are a lot more options in your preferences that you can go through today. So I recommend taking some time to go through them when you get a chance. So now that we've navigated a Slack workspace, looked at managing our profiles and preferences, let's get an idea of what a day in Slack could look like. So this is Jennifer, and she'll be the example that I'll be using for this. Jennifer is a project manager. Jennifer starts her day by signaling to her colleagues and teammates that she's online by updating her availability, and she sets her custom status to focus time. This lets her team know that she's catching up on announcements and updates from overnight. So this is how we do this. Click on your profile at the top, select your availability. So we'll switch that to active so everyone knows that you're online, but you're not fully available. So we're going to set a custom status here. And what I love about this custom status that Jennifer uses regularly, because it's been used regularly, it's there sticky for her right when she jumps in. So we'll click that onto focus time for 30 minutes. Now, if Jennifer wanted to, she could also pause notifications. For the basis of this example though, I'll leave that unchecked. Now, Jennifer has also customized her sidebar to keep the most important information at the top. So you can see here, these are all the items that we had originally checked. So she can see all her unread messages here. She can view any threaded messages as well that she wants to quickly respond to. She has also created sections for company announcements and the people and channels she collaborates with the most. So here is her announcement section, and we can use what we call a caret here to hide that or show it. She also has a section for her team. So here are all her teammates. And this is what's really cool about this with sections is you can simply drag and drop the channels or direct messages across the sections. She also has a section that she's created for herself. So we saw this in Jacob's example. She's got a one-to-one channel, she has her expenses channel, and as Jacob mentioned, she also has a to-do list channel. Finally, she has a section there for her account. What's really great is all other channels will be put into their own section as well that you can minimize at any point. Now, to start her focus time, Jen navigates to the top of her sidebar to check on any mentions and reactions that have come through while she was offline. Here she can see all the reactions that are to messages that she sent, but she can also see that there's a new message for her. She's been added to a new channel. Jennifer uses an emoji reaction to acknowledge the message. So with this one, we'll give a thumbs up. And she also wants to post a response via a thread to that original message. So what I love about being able to do this from mentions and reactions, when you hover over, you actually have the option to create a thread straight from here. And as Jacob mentioned before, this is a really great way as well to make sure that you're not sort of cluttering up the channel with other messages. So let's send Paige confirmation. If Jen wants, she can also send this back out into the main channel to let the team know, but we'll keep it just in the thread for now. Recognizing that this new project that Jen's been added to is going to be a priority, Jen creates a new section to her sidebar dedicated to Project Echo. So let's look at how to create a section. Anywhere in the sidebar here, you'll see these three dots, section options. She clicks on this. Let's go create a new section. We've got some default options for you already. I'm going to use the priority one, but then we're going to say it's for Project and create. This is now at the top because it was a priority, but if Jen wanted to, she could also move this depending on where she wants it to be. So we might put it just under announcements. Now what Jen needs to do is actually start moving the channels that she's going to need into that section. So we have a lot of hyperlinks across Slack, so we can actually just click on the name. This takes us to the Project Echo channel. We can click on the arrow there, and we have a couple of options in how we can add this to a section. So you'll see this option here that has a star, but it also has a few more options here as well. So one option is to move this straight into Project Echo. The other option is to simply take the channel and drag it where you'd like it to be. So we'll house that just under Project Echo. Now, Jen also wants to know if there are any other Project Echo channels that she should be adding to this section. So let's do a search, and rather than using project, let's look at Echo, as this is the sort of common keyword. So we can see here that there are a few other channels that have also come up. So we'll go and jump to Project Echo Milestone. And let's also add this one. And if we go back and look at our recent searches, let's type in Echo again. And what we see here is there is a Project Echo channel that Jen isn't a part of. Jennifer knows she's not a part of it because it says here that she's not a member. So Jennifer clicks on this channel and she says, I need to be part of this team. So she joins that channel and then also moves the channel into that section. Now, when working across this project, Jen might want to be working in two channels at once, just for referring back to different mentions. So as we mentioned before, we now have a feature called Split View. Jen can hover over any of these names. I'm using a Mac, so I'm going to use Command. Click on the channel name, and you can see that's now brought that channel out. Jen can also slide it across, and you'll see that the workspace changes to match. Jen recognizes that there are probably going to be some documents that she's going to want to review. From the Project Echo Milestone channel, Jennifer recognizes that she'll need to dedicate time to review the timeline and progress documents. To ensure she can easily access these, Jennifer navigates to the message with the docs and adds the documents to the saved items. To do this, simply hover over the message. You'll see these options come up and simply select this bookmark, which is added to saved item. That is now added in the saved item section. Similarly, Jennifer could navigate to that message. So we'll use these navigation bars to go back to that message with the document. And for more items, which is this section here, choose to be reminded of the message at a specific time or date. So that's the option there that says to remind me about this. Now, let's fast forward a little bit. While reviewing the documents, Jennifer is confused about one of the items on the timeline and recognizes that she needs some further clarity from Paige. There are a number of ways that Jennifer could ask Paige for clarification. She could send a message, a voice note or a video clip in channel, or via direct message if she wants to keep things asynchronous. Or she could start a huddle with Paige, as it's just a quick message that she needs clarity on, and she needs it to get herself started on planning, and Paige is in her time zone. So Jennifer chooses to initiate a huddle, and you'll find the option to initiate the huddle there. You'll also see it on on the profile page as well when you click it out open. Once Jennifer is all caught up on her mentions and reactions, she's ready to get across the rest of her day. So she's ready to start looking out at all of her other channels. So I hope this example of how Jennifer structures her Slack workspace has been helpful. Have a think about how you structure your day in Slack. Are you using the features we've mentioned? And if not, which features could you add to help set you up for success? I'm going to hand back to Jacob now, who'll take you through productivity apps you can add to Slack today. Thanks.
Great. Thanks for that demo, Moshi. Hopefully everyone will find that valuable. If you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. So as Moshi mentioned, I'm going to go back into the demo now, back into the webinar now, and finish up with some recommendations on how you can integrate apps into Slack. As I mentioned, the focus of this final section will be around connecting apps in Slack, which will help you drive productivity by not having to move from application to application to application to do your work. Using the Slack platform, you can bring the tools that you use every day into the collaboration with your teammates. With the right people and tools in one place, Slack can be where your team does its best work. Slack integrates with over 2,000 applications, and having everything in one place means less juggling and jumping between tools to keep projects moving forward and create a more pleasant workplace. As a starting point, we recommend integration of your productivity applications, but you can also review all of the tools you use on a day-to-day basis, as it's probably a Slack application that will help you be more productive. Some of the most popular apps that we see with our customers today will be walked through now. So as mentioned, Zoom is a popular application which would allow you to start Zoom meetings, make Zoom phone calls with video, audio, and even instantly share screen all within a Slack channel directly. This can also be done, the same integration can be done with Microsoft Teams as well. Additionally, you can integrate Google Drive, which would allow you to adjust file permissions in just a click and get notified on updates on specific documents. And this can also be done with OneDrive or SharePoint files right within Slack as well. Additionally, the Google Calendar application allows you to do your daily schedule, receive up-to-the-minute reminders, and keep on top of your calendar by receiving invitations or even responding to invitations, all without leaving Slack. And once again, this can also be done if you're an Outlook user and you can access your calendar to receive the same features. The Slack for Gmail application allows you to keep your conversations moving forward by bringing context from the email into a Slack channel, direct message, and you can choose where this message is being sent, and it also comes with all of the attachments with the email as well. This integration is particularly useful if you're working in Slack as a project team that may be collaborating with a vendor who's not on Slack. By using the application, you can bring all of the conversation directly in, allowing your teammates to benefit from that context as well. And once again, you can integrate your Outlook. If you are using a Microsoft user, you can seamlessly bridge the gap between your Outlook email and Slack as well. was a quick walkthrough of some of the key productivity applications that you might think about integrating at the end of this call. Before we jump into the Q&A, there'll be a number of places that we'll just quickly walk through on where you can find more helpful information and even get more training. We recommend heading to slack.com/help for a ton of help, articles, and guides to help you get set up in Slack. If you have any feedback you would like to share with us, you can always email feedback@slack.com or search for feedback in Slack by using the shortcut lightning button in the bottom left hand of a channel message. I encourage you to spend a bit of time to learn more about visiting the Slack 101 site and also turn to each other or consider tuning into another webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, and now it's time for some live Q&A.
Okay, thanks for that. Hi everyone, Jacob here, and we've also got Maisha on the line. First and foremost, let me apologise for the audio challenges that we experienced during the initial part of this webinar. We'll be re-recording it later this afternoon and sending out a better audio version at the close of the day. So thanks for bearing with us, and glad to open up into the Q&A. Mashidi, I believe there's some questions that have come through already. Do you want to maybe kick us off with some questions that have come through?
Yeah, once again, thank you everyone for tuning in. We're going to answer some of your questions now. I'm really sorry in advance if we don't get through all of them, but we'll do the best we can. One of the first questions here I've got is around bookmarks and whether or not they can be categorized, and kind of how then do you really manage bookmarks? Jacob, I don't know if you want to take that, but I'm also happy to respond to that one.
Yeah,
yeah.
Sure.
So what I recommend. Yeah, go ahead, mate.
No, I was just going to kick us off by saying you can certainly create folder structures for your bookmarks within that bookmarks bar. So we'd recommend, aligning them to, whatever makes sense on the channel, and that could be, a project overview, it could be design briefs, it could be specific links to other parts of the channel. But yeah, you can use those folders to essentially categorize and bring same sort of links together to provide a more concise overview of the channel.
Amazing. That sounds really good. I'll just head over to another question. So we've got a really good question here around app management. So if I connect an app to Slack, will my admin be notified for it?
Yeah, so it depends on the admin preferences that have been set up for an individual workspace. So if it's been set up from an admin perspective, so you could request for an application to be installed if that admin preference has been set up. So that step is essentially there for an admin to click approve or decline an app to be installed. However, if that setting hasn't been installed, then you can freely install any app into a Slack workspace. But we'd always recommend to check with admin first before installing any application.
We've got another question here around organizing channels, and this may be, I think, a little bit of confusion around how workspaces are organized when you create, say, something like sections and then move channels around. So the question is, if I make changes on how the channels are organized, will it not affect everybody else?
Yeah, good question. Something that we get all the time. So think of your sidebar as your individual view into a Slack workspace. So everything you see on that left-hand sidebar is entirely personalized to you based on the channels and the conversations that you're a part of. So if you change the flow of them or the sections, that's just really getting Slack set up in a way that makes most sense to you rather than impacting everyone else.
Amazing. So sticking to the theme of channels, we have a question from an admin now on what they're calling overpopulation of channel creation. So do you have any hints on how to sort of streamline managing channels and channel creation?
Yeah, so it is also another question that we get all the time around, too many channels and how do I best navigate them and manage them. So my recommendation would always be from an admin perspective, to be using our channel management dashboard, which is an admin tool in the back end, which allows you to get an overview of all the channels that exist within your workspace, depending on the plan type that you've got, of course. And then you can take administrative action off them in terms of archiving them or bring participants in. On the flip side as well, I would, as an admin, be encouraging people to really learn the behaviour of archiving channels when they're no longer needed, rather than just letting them sit there sort of stagnant. Moshe, I don't know if you've got any recommendations from your end.
I also think that sometimes a lot of channel creation is good, particularly if it's public channels. It lets you know that people are working on projects and they need to spin up channels for them. I think one thing that a lot of people might struggle with is, what do I do with the channel once we've done the project? And so I think also sort of that education around being able to archive a channel when it's not needed. And I think this also speaks to what you spoke about before with everybody's workspace is their own customized view. So you could have hundreds of channels across your organization, but you have to remember individuals are only going to join the channels that are beneficial to them. So they're only going to see, a handful of those, or 10 or 20, or just a fraction of the full amount or extent of channels.
Good insight. I think questions we have coming through. So one question.
So we've got a question here is, can you send scheduled messages within threads as well?
Good question. Thanks, Moshe. So in terms of the scheduled send, that will work across both the main channel and also in the thread as well, and just using the same kind of scheduled send functionality.
Awesome. We've had another question that's just come in. This one is on configuring notifications. It's a bit of a long one. So can we configure notifications on the basis of a threshold value? So for example, how many unread messages in a channel? For example, if an unread message count in channel reached 10, then only get the notification once there's 10 unread messages in the channel. It's a lot of granular notification management.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that isn't something that we provide just yet, but it sounds like a feature request, and we'll let our product team know. But unfortunately, we don't offer kind of threshold-based messaging counts. So if we kind of flick back to earlier in the webinar, we're talking around those notifications. So really just making sure that your channels are set up. So your key channels might have all of your notifications turned on for key projects that you're working on, and then basically prioritizing when you check those on the channels with bolded notifications in a time that works best for you.
Awesome. A question here, this is going back to sections. As a Slack admin, can I set customized sections for everyone?
Another feature request that we see come through all the time, particularly after we release the individual view. I believe it's not something that we're currently looking at, but certainly a product request that we're seeing quite a lot. So I guess watch this space.
Amazing. Okay, this is an interesting one, and it's more about the difference with using Slack across devices. So I've been using Slack on web browser rather than the app, so the desktop app, and some of my coworkers recommend using it from desktop app. What are some of the differences between using it on the browser and the desktop app?
So, I mean, from my perspective, I certainly use the desktop application much more frequently than the web browser. And this really just comes down to notification preferences. I find that the notifications are more persistent and are more reliable to come through when I use the desktop application. And additionally, I can have multiple workspaces open at once, whereas in the browser, you can only have the one workspace open.
Yeah, and what Jacob's talking about when he says the one workspace open, you'll see when you're signed into multiple workspaces, we have a thing called the quick switcher. It's available on all the apps, so it's on mobile as well as desktop, and that's just that ability to quickly move in between your different workspaces. The feature doesn't exist on browser just yet, but in terms of all the other features, they work across all the devices. So there's really no limitation. It just depends to what suits you best. Okay, this is a really great question. Is there an easy way to add all members to a channel rather than individually? So looking at bulk ways to add users to channels.
Yeah, so this can be done in a couple of ways. So first and foremost, there is a bulk upload feature where you can do it via email. So if you copy and paste email addresses into the kind of channel adding section, it will then automatically read those as user profiles and bring them in. Additionally, we've also have a feature what's called user groups. So if you set up user groups for, it could be for your all company, or it could be for a function or a particular project team, you could just mention the @handle of, it could be @all company, and then it will add all of those user profiles into that Slack channel. But that would once again require you to set that user group up and maintain it as new people enter your organization.
Awesome. I've got a question here around profiles and profile management. Can we edit our profiles and add new fields such as hobbies or languages? So new profile fields.
Yeah, so this is an admin feature where admins can set up custom profile fields for people to populate with kind of whatever the theme is for the actual profile field. So you can certainly add as many custom profile fields as you like.
I've got a split view question. Can you use the split view function across channels located in different workspaces, or is it only with the channels that exist in the same workspace?
So it would only be within the channels that exist within the same workspace. I guess to probably add on to that is if it's a multi-workspace channel that lives within a specific product that we have, Enterprise Grid, you would be able to use split view feature. But if you think a split view will only work within specific channels or conversations that you've got within one particular sidebar.
I've got another question. So somebody's come back on user groups. They wanted to know, is there a way to automate the addition of users to user group? We have issues where we have to chase admins to constantly update these groups, but it's a bit of a burden at times.
Of course, yeah, it's certainly a manual task. So depending on the plan type that you have with Slack, and this would be on Business Plus and above, you can automate the creation of user groups via Active Directory. So if you've synced your Azure Active Directory, you can pre-populate user groups via that way, or you could also use the Skim API to do so, but would require your admin to sort of set that up and configure all of it for you.
Fabulous. So I've got just a few more minutes. I've got just a quick one here, going back to custom profile fields. Are custom profile fields available on all plans?
Yes, custom profile fields are available on all plans.
I've got another question for you, one, Jacob, that we probably get at least once a day. Is there a way to change a private channel to a public channel?
So currently there is not, but we are working on releasing that feature in the near future. Details are still fairly high level at the moment in terms of whether it be available on all plans, but it will be something that will be coming out relatively soon.
Fabulous. Okay. Are Slack channels bound to workspaces? So for example, does workspace configuration need to be done at the company level rather than an individual level? As a user, do I have to just use sections to organize my workspace if our company has all channels in one workspace? So I guess this is another question around channel management and joining channels, and then I guess maybe sharing channels.
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple of elements to that question. So first and foremost, an organization typically would have one workspace or one workspace to capture all of their kind of group-wide or organization-wide collaboration. So you think of that as all of the channels and conversations that exist within an organization. So this would usually be managed and facilitated at an admin level. So you'd have a group of admins who are responsible to maintain those channel lists. Whereas you're individually responsible for really maintaining your membership and activity within channels that are relevant to you. And the best way to maintain these is to create your sections on your sidebar there, and also potentially mute or archive channels that maybe perhaps aren't relevant to you, and you want to declutter your sidebar.
Awesome. Just as a general rule, everyone, you will be receiving a recording of this. That's a question that we've had come out a bit. So just a reminder again, that you will receive access to an on-demand version of the webinar. We've got time for a handful more questions. So this one says it's around message deletion. So once messages are deleted, is it somehow recoverable, trackable by anyone such as an admin?
So once the message is deleted, there is a log that's captured in Slack. Whether you have access to these logs or not is dependent based on the plan type that you are on. For specific security concerns, I know that you can contact our customer experience team if you are not on what's called Enterprise Grid for very specific questions or investigations that you need to undertake. Whereas on Enterprise Grid, you have the ability to track those edits and also deletions as well.
So, okay, I'm just having a look. So we've got a really interesting question that's just come in. I'm happy to take this one as well. It says, what are other new features upcoming that you could share with us today? So we can't really talk about any new features that are coming, but quarterly we do have an admin webinar where our product team actually does talk you through some of the new features that are on the horizon and some of the recently released features. So that's generally sent out to admins. So be on the lookout for that in your inbox, or you can just search our webinar page and you'll be able to find the link to that one. We've got another question on just how to add apps to your workspace.
Sure. So there's a couple of ways that you can do this. So first and foremost, there is a website called slack.com/apps, which is essentially our application directory. And so from there, you can browse and also freely request to install applications on your workspace. The other way to do that would be, so if you open your Slack workspace, in the top left-hand corner where your navigation bar sits, you'll see an option that says apps. If you click on that, you'll be able to view and browse both the directory, but also the approved applications for your workspace.
Awesome. I've just got another question that's come in that is, I think, one we also hear on a daily basis, but what is the difference between huddles and calls? I guess how you would use them.
Yeah, for sure. So huddles is certainly one of my favorite features that we've released in the last 6 months. So if you think of huddles as a way to replicate those quick conversations that you used to have in the office that maybe don't do so now that we're all working virtually. So a huddle is really just an impromptu audio only experience where you need to quickly align with a person or a smaller group of people on a particular issue or question that you're working resolving as a team. Whereas a call, a little bit more formal. Obviously, you can have your video on, and you can also integrate calling tools like Zoom or Microsoft Teams to support from a scheduling element.
Awesome. Thanks for answering that one, Jacob. Another question for you. Can you upload live working files in Slack that multiple parties can edit and collaborate on?
Yeah, so if you're using, I guess, document management platforms like Google Drive or SharePoint or OneDrive, so you can share these documents or the links to these documents to a particular channel and maybe even bookmark them if they're an important document, so that everybody within the channel can freely access that document, can ask questions, can engage on it, but it also links the file itself to the channel that perhaps the conversation is centered around.
Awesome. Okay, a question here around threads. When I use threads, can I label the thread or give it a topic header for that thread, sort of like a subject line in an email?
Not necessarily. So if you think of a thread as if just directly replying to a main message within a channel, so there's a couple of ways you could perhaps categorize them. So you could create, if it's a company all hands channel, you could create, say, bookmark folders for particular questions that are frequently answered. but you can't necessarily add a subject line or or a subject line to a message.
Awesome. Okay, just having a look now. All right, so there's a few questions that have come through that I think require a little bit of further troubleshooting. So just as a reminder, folks, our customer support team is the best team to reach out to if you've got something that needs to be tackled a little bit. So I've got a question on workflows. I'm not sure if we'll be able to dig into it, but essentially when you're sending a form, they ask using our workflow builder, which is one of our native Slack features for automating your everyday tasks. I was wondering if there is a way to add a question type for date in the send a form step. I'm happy to take that one, Jacob. So at this stage, there isn't. However, please be on the lookout for some updates that are coming to our platform really soon, and particularly coming through to workflows that I think are going to address a lot of those for you. Right, and on that note, we've answered all the questions we could answer today.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We will be wrapping up now. First and foremost, I will just apologise again for the audio experiences during the webinar. We'll be re-recording it later this afternoon and providing a copy to everyone who joined this morning. So thanks for bearing with us. Hopefully you found it informative, and we hope to see you on a future webinar.
Thanks, everyone.